Good morning. How are you all? I missed you all last week. I was not feeling well, but thank God He's brought me back to a full recovery. So thank you all for your attendance and your visiting with us during these lessons that we're bringing. And I know some of you have been with me from the very start, and you can see that we go through books of the Bible, verse by verse, and explain those verses as we go along using scripture to describe what is being said. And so I thank you that you stuck with me this long, and I thank the new subscribers who have come on lately. So we're continuing our stories at our lesson from the book of Genesis, and we're in chapter 31, and we'll be looking at Jacob returns to Canaan. It's been over 20 years since he left Canaan to go to Haran to be with his kinfolks. But now he's going back home. And there are many incidents that's going to happen in his travel back home to Canaan. And he's gained much cattle and maidservants and men servants, camels and asses during his stay in Haran with his uncle Laban. And now it begins in Genesis chapter 31. And he heard the words of Laban's sons saying, Jacob had taken away all that was our father's, and of that which was our father's has he gotten all this glory. He's gained all these possessions because he's taken them away from my father, from our father. Verse 2, and Jacob beheld the countenance the body language of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. He changed his conduct before Jacob. Verse 3, and the Lord said unto Jacob, return unto the land of thy fathers and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. In chapter 28, Jacob had made a vow that if God took care of him while he was in Haran, that he would worship God. And now God is holding Jacob responsible or accountable for the vow that he made to the Lord. Verse 4, and Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field unto the flock, and said unto them, I see your father's countenance, that it is not toward me as before. His body language has changed, but the God of my father had been with me. Verse 6, and you know that with all my power I have served your father. Verse 7, and your father had deceived me and changed my wages 10 times, but God suffered him not to hurt me. When he says he's changed my wages 10 times, it means that the more I give, the more he expects. And I'm not gaining anything because he keeps changing, moving the goalpost, as they say today. Verse 8, if he said thus, the speckled shall be thy wages, then all the cattle bear speckled. And if he said thus, the ringstrait shall be thy hire or thy wages, then bear all the cattle ringstrait. Verse 9, thus God has taken away the cattle of your father and given them to me. And the next few verses will explain how God communicated to Jacob on how he should gain more cattle. Verse 10, and it came to pass at the time that the cattle conceived, Jacob says, that I lifted up mine eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leaped upon the cattle were ringstrait, speckled, and grizzled. And this is how God told him in a dream how to take these rods and take the bark off and put them into the trough for the cattle to drink. And in that drinking, they would conceive healthy cattle. Verse 11, and the angel of God spake unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, here am I. Verse 12. And he said, lift up now thine eyes and see. And all the rams which leap upon the cattle are ringstrait, speckled, and grizzled. For I have seen all that Laman doeth unto thee. Verse 13. I am the God of Bethel, where thou anointest the pillar, and where thou vowest a vow unto me. Now arise and get thee out from this land, and return unto the land of thy kindred. And that was when Jacob was in Bethel in chapter 28, verse 20. Verse 14, and Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, is there yet any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted of him strangers? For he had sold us and had quite devoured also our money. So yeah, you go ahead and do this and we'll be with you because our father has not treated us right. And then they say in verse 16, for all the riches which God had taken from our father, that is ours and our children's. Now then, whatsoever God had said unto thee, do. Verse 17, then Jacob rose up and set his sons and his wives up on camels, and he carried away all his cattle and all his goods which he had gotten in Paddan Aram, for to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. Verse 19, and Laman went to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's. So they were idol worshipers. And in Joshua, the 24th chapter, you'll see that the people of the land from which Abraham came out worshiped idol gods. And these people, even though God is going to use them in his bringing salvation to Israel and the world, they began as idol worshipers. Verse 20, and Jacob stole away unawares to Laman the Syrian, in that he told him not that he fled. And this is where in chapter 30, verse 36, God is going to set 3 days' journey between Jacob and Laman. So verse 21, so he fled with all that he had, and he rose up and passed over the river and set his face toward Mount Gilead. And it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob was fled. That's when God set the 3 days journey. Verse 23, and he took his brethren with him. Now he's talking about his sons. His brethren are in the family of God. And he took his brethren with him and pursued after him 7 days' journey. And they overtook him in the Mount Gilead. And God came to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night and said unto him, take heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. Then Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched or set up camp. He had set up his tent in the mount, and Laban with his brethren or his sons pitched in the Mount of Gilead. Verse 26, and Laban said to Jacob, what hast thou done that thou hast stolen away unawares to me and carried away my daughters as captives taken with the sword? Verse 27, wherefore didst thou flee away secretly and steal away from me, and didst not tell me that I might have sent thee away with gladness that word myrrh, and with songs and tabret and with harp? I would have given you a party had you let me know you were leaving. Verse 28, and hast not suffered or allowed me to kiss my sons and my daughters. Thou hast now done foolishly in so doing. And he's talking about his grandchildren too. Verse 29, and it is in the power of my hand to do you hurt. But the God of your father spake unto me yesternight, saying, take thou heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. That is, to bring him back and make him stay in Haran. So that was said by God in verse 24. Verse 30, and now, though thou wouldest needs be gone, because thou sore longest after thy father's house, yet wherefore hast thou stolen my gods? And then again in Joshua 24, verses 1 and 2, you'll see how the people of Haran served idol gods. Verse 31, and Jacob answered and said to Laban, because I was afraid, for I stole away because I was afraid. For I said, peradventure, thou wouldest take by force thy daughters from me. Verse 32, with whomsoever thou findest thy gods, let him not live. Now Jacob doesn't know Rachel, the wife he loved, had taken the idols. So reading verse 32 again, with whomsoever thou findest thy gods, let him not live. Before our brethren or sons discern thou what is thine with me, and take it to thee. For Jacob knew not that Rachel had stolen them. Verse 33. And Laban went into Jacob's tent, into Jacob and Leah's tent, and into the two maidservants' tents. But he found them not. He didn't find the images. Then went he out of Leah's tent and entered into Rachel's tent. Now Rachel, verse 34, had taken the images and put them in the camel's furniture of the saddle, and set upon the images in the saddle. And Laban searched all the tent, but found them not. Verse 35. And she said to her father, Rachel said to her father, let it not displease my Lord that I cannot rise up before thee, for the custom of women is upon me. And he searched, but found not the images. And she's saying she's on her menstrual cycle. Verse 36. And Jacob was wroth. He was enraged and argued with Laban. Jacob answered and said to Laban, what is my trespass? What is my sin that you have so hotly pursued after me? Verse 37. Whereas thou hast searched all my stuff, what hast thou found of all thy household stuff? Set it here before my brethren and thy brethren, that they may judge betwixt us both. Then he says to Laban, verse 38, this 20 years have I been with thee. Thy ewes and thy she-goats have not cast their young, the young sheep and the goats, female sheep and goats, have not cast their young. And the rams of thy flock have I not eaten, the male sheep. Verse 39. That which was torn of beasts I brought not unto thee. I bear the loss of it. Of my hand didst thou require it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. So I paid for everything that was lost under my care. Verse 40. Thus I was in the day the drought consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from mine eyes, because I was taking care to make sure your flock was safe and okay. Thus I have been 20 years in thy house. I served thee 14 years for thy 2 daughters, and 6 years for thy cattle. And thou hast changed my wages 10 times or repeatedly. Verse 42. Except the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me, surely thou hast sent me away now empty. God had seen mine affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked thee yesternight. Verse 43. And Laban answered and said unto Jacob, these daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and these cattle are my cattle, and all that thou seest is mine. And what can I do this day unto these my daughters, or unto their children, which they have borne? So he's claiming right of everything that belonged to Jacob. Verse 44. Now therefore, come thou, let us make a covenant or an agreement, I and thou, and that is me and you, and let it be a witness between me and thee, or me and you. Verse 45. And Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar, or as a evidence of this covenant that they're about to make. And Jacob said unto his brethren, gather stones. And they took stones and made an heap, and they did eat there upon the heap, a monument. Verse 47. And Laban called it Jegar-Shahaduthah, which is the Chaldean word for the Hebrew word, but Jacob called it Gilead, which is the Hebrew word for the same thing. Verse 48. And Laban said, this heap is witness between me and thee this day. Therefore was the name of it called Gilead, and Mizpah, which means watchtower. For he said, the Lord watch between me and thee when we're absent one from another. Now, as a kid, we prayed this verse as a prayer. It is a prayer, but it's also a covenant, and that covenant will be in the next few verses. So the Mizpah is watchtower. So the Lord watch between me and thee when we're absent one from another. If thou shalt afflict my daughters, or if thou shalt take other wives beside my daughters, no man is with us. See, God is witness betwixt me and thee. So part of the covenant is that you don't be harsh with my daughters, and that you take not another wife. And Jacob never took another wife. Verse 51. And Laban said to Jacob, behold this heap, and behold this pillar, which I have cast between me and thee. He's taking credit for something he did not do. Verse 52. This heap be witness, and this pillar be witness, that this is part of the covenant, that I will not pass over this heap to thee, and that thou shalt not pass over this heap and this pillar unto me for harm. And so here he's obeying God and not trying to get Jacob to go back to Haran. Verse 53. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge betwixt us. And Jacob sware by the fear of his father Isaac. Jacob is coming into genuine faith in the God of Abraham and Isaac and our living God. Here and in his life, he had faith, but he didn't understand the walk of faith until he went through these kinds of events over a lifetime. Verse 54. Then Jacob offered sacrifice upon the mount and called his brethren to eat bread. And they did eat bread and tarried all night in the mount. Verse 55. And early in the morning, Laban rose up and kissed his sons and his daughters and blessed them. And Laban departed and returned unto his place. And so this is leading to Jacob going back to Isaac before Isaac dies. And it's already been 20 years since Jacob left, because Esau had threatened to kill him, and Rebekah, his mother, had gotten Isaac to bless Jacob and let him go to Haran to find a wife, God building the house of the Lord. So you all, thank you so much. And the lesson was a little long today, but we made it. So thank you all, and you all have a great day and a great week.